Welcome everyone to another episode of Retro Wrestling Reviews. Fredo Esparza here, and this week we look back at Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling's February 20th, 1982 show. But before we get to the review, be sure to click that subscribe button. We'll have more wrestling show reviews as well as Lucha World podcast and other content available on this channel. This episode of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling was taped on February 17th, 1982 at the WPCQ TV studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, and of course aired on February 20th, 1982. Bob Caudle and Roddy Piper are on commentary. They had the NWA World Tag Team titles on the announcer's desk. Piper said he had surpassed Ricky Steamboat in the fan voting for the wrestler who contributed the most in 1981. Roddy Piper then interviewed Sergeant Slaughter. They both talked about how much they admire each other the most. Bob Caudle tried to interrupt, but Sergeant Slaughter told him to leave. Caudle told them both to stop, but Piper claimed they only stopped because they wanted to. First match on the show had Blackjack Mulligan Jr. and Jake the Snake Roberts beating Buck Brannigan and Don Gilbert after Blackjack Jr. hit Brannigan with a forearm and covered him for the pin. Sergeant Slaughter stayed to watch the match for a bit, but then left. Some quick action from Roberts and Blackjack Jr. Austin Idol then showed up ringside and started filming the match with his own camcorder. Mulligan Jr. hit Brannigan with an elbow and followed up with an uppercut. He whipped Brannigan into the ropes and caught him with an elbow. Roberts tagged in and got Brannigan down with a crossface, but Brannigan reversed it into a cradle pin attempt, but Roberts was able to escape. Roberts then tagged in Blackjack Jr., and he charged in and dropped an elbow across Brannigan's left arm. More quick tags from Mulligan Jr. and Roberts. Roberts caught Gilbert with a chop and knocked him off the apron. Roberts then hits Brannigan with a knee lift. Tagged in Mulligan Jr., who caught Brannigan with the forearm for the pin. Sergeant Slaughter then beat Vinny Valentino with the Cobra Clutch for the submission win. This was the second match on the show. Sarge was accompanied by Private Don Kernoodle and Private Jim Nelson. Sergeant Slaughter just beats on Valentino early in the match. Both privates climbed up on the ring but went back and stood ringside. Austin Idol returned and continued to film this match. Slaughter just kept abusing poor Vinny Valentino throughout. Slaughter whipped Valentino into the ropes and caught him with a clothesline. He followed that up with a Cobra Clutch for the win. A very short match. And very dominating performance from Slaughter, who was awesome, as usual in these Mid-Atlantic episodes. Sergeant Slaughter and his privates joined Bob Caudle for an interview. They show Slaughter a video of Dusty Rhodes. Slaughter admitted that Rhodes must be tough because he beat Harley Race twice for the NWA World Heavyweight title, but he's not as tough as him. Slaughter claimed all of Rhodes' moves in the match that they were showing were illegal. I thought that was hilarious. Sergeant Slaughter said he didn't care about Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, Jack Briscoe, or anyone else because he had a devastating hold called the Cobra Clutch. He asked Private Nelson and Private Colonel who the greatest wrestler in the world was at that moment, and they both said it was Sergeant Slaughter. Up next, Porkchop Cash beat Ben Alexander after knocking him out with a big headbutt off the ropes. Alexander got in some offense in the match, including getting Cash with a knee to the midsection. He went for a slam late in the match, but Cash ended up landing on top of him. Cash then caught Alexander with a headbutt off the ropes that knocked Ben out and covered him for the pin. During the match, Piper on commentary talked about wrestlers always copying his moves, and he believed Cash copied some of his moves. Up next was a promo for Mid-Atlantic bumper stickers. I really hope somebody actually got some of these and still has them. Roddy Piper joined to promote the bumper sticker, the TV show, and himself. Piper said he had those bumper stickers all over his car. The next match was Ivan Koloff beating Rick Benefield after using his finisher, which was him climbing the top rope and grabbing his head and sending him headfirst into the mat with his knee on the back of his head for the pin. This was another squash match with Koloff dominating most of the match. Koloff used a variety of bear hugs, backbreakers, body slams, kicks, and punches to beat on Benefield until he was able to get the win. Ray Stevens then joins Bob Caudle for an interview. Stevens said Pat Patterson suffered a knee injury and said he has a few tag team partners that will be with him, including Dusty Rhodes and Bad Leroy Brown. He warned Ole Anderson and Stan Hansen that he was coming for them. Blackjack Mulligan Jr. talked about Sergeant Slaughter and the Cobra Clutch Challenge. He vowed that he could get out of the hole and he'd win the $1,000. Ricky Steamboat talked about still respecting NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair. Jake Roberts was curious why Roddy Piper and Sergeant Slaughter were showing such mutual respect and was suspicious about it. Mike George then beat Steve Siebert with a shoulder breaker in a very short match, with George dominating throughout with this strength. Not much to this match. Then that was followed by another promo for the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling bumper stickers, this time with Johnny Weaver, who said he was proud of the bumper sticker. Mike George then joined Bob Caudle for an interview, and he told Sergeant Slaughter that he was there, which I'm sure was supposed to scare Slaughter, but I don't think George stuck around for too long. I think he ended up going back to Mid-South for a bit and then went back somewhere else afterwards. Ole Anderson Stan Hansen then beat Rick Benefield and Tony Anthony after Hansen caught Anthony with a lariat and then followed with a knee drop for a pin on Anthony. Ole and Stan dominated this match. Hansen in particular just brutalized Anthony and Benefield, who at least took turns taking their beatdowns. That will be one thing I will say, that Anthony and Benefield shared the beatings in this match. Austin Idol again came out to film the match. There were times in the match that Ole and Stan were beating up on one guy and would just send that guy over to tag his partner so he could get beaten to a pulp just like his buddy. Closing minutes that had Ole and slam Anthony. He then tagged in Hansen, who whipped Anthony across the ropes and caught him with the lariat. Hansen followed that up with a knee drop and covered him for the pin. As the show is winding down, they do closing interviews. Ivan Koloff was upset that Jimmy Valiant interfered and interrupted him during his matches. He vowed to tear apart Valiant. He didn't like that Valiant kept trying to annoy him. Bob Caudle asked Austin Idol about bringing the camcorder to ringside. Idol said that it was the Idol movement and that this was phase 1 in his quest to become a world champion. When he reaches phase 3, he will be a world champion. Stan Hansen, Ole Anderson, and Gene Anderson joined Bob Caudle to talk about the tag team tournaments going on around the world. Ole said what they saw in their match day could have been comparable to seeing the Briscoes or Stevens or Steamboat taking that beating. Hansen said he didn't have to rant or rave because he knew where he was from and they could beat anyone. He said they were good. Gene said that Ole and Hansen would be the tag team champions. Gene accidentally called Hansen Nelson, which Hansen quickly told him that he was not Private Nelson as the show came to an end. I thought this was an okay show. Match-wise, nothing really stood out. Piper joining Bob Caudle on commentary was excellent and the highlight of the show. Matches were mostly squashes. There were a couple of interviews, including Sergeant Slaughter and Roddy Piper, that were pretty good. But other than that, I just thought it was an okay show. That's it for this review. Be sure to subscribe to the Retro Wrestling YouTube channel, and we'll be back again soon with more reviews.